join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight, seeing as it is our first meeting post our annual town election, and it stands that this board takes this time to go through reorganization. We'll enter into items 87, Select Board reorganization. We do this every year to get a good rotation of the board and let everyone have an experience as chair and vice chair, and it's been working pretty well thus far. But at this time, I'll entertain nominations for chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion we elect Selectman Runyon as chair. for the next-
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of
Aye.
Selectman
Aye.
Runyon? Well, we'll just go right for it. Yeah, all right, aye. Opposed? Abstain? 5-0-0, unless you're abstaining. Of course you're not abstaining. 5-0-0, chair. From this point on, I will hand the gavel to you, sir.
Oh, thank you very kindly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. I want to thank my colleagues for the vote of confidence. Hopefully we'll have a very productive session over the next 12 months. I want to thank Selectman Priest for guiding us through some very difficult times in the past 12 months. These hybrid meetings have been no easy task. There's been lots of twists and turns, and Selectman Randy prior to that has been a difficult 2 years. Been a real learning curve there. And Nick, I think you did one heck of a job getting us through there. So thank you very much. Okay, second order of business, the position of vice chair. In a motion to nominate vice chair, Mr. Espejo.
Nominate Selectman Randy for position of vice chair.
Motion to elect Selectman Moran.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by Selectman Tigas. Any other nominations? Being none, all in favor of Selectman Morandi for vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. Congratulations, Joseph.
Thank you very much.
Welcome
Thank
back.
you. Thank you, guys.
Back on the saddle again.
Thank you for having the confidence in me to do vice chair. And Nick, I'll echo Mike's sentiments there. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Really did. There was a lot of stuff going on last year, and
Yeah.
you handled it very, very well.
Thank you.
Indeed, indeed.
Do you switch with Nick?
No, they just put it over here.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
You don't have to sit on a certain side, right?
I think so.
We can move it next week.
Okay. All right, agenda item 88, citizens' time. Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak during citizens' time? I don't see anybody in the room. Is there anybody online who would like to speak at citizens' time? So you guys, I'm going to rely on some of you guys with better eyes than I do for the next 12 months. Just help me out to see who's online out there. If there were any hands raised, I appreciate it.
Don't see
The
anybody.
assistants.
I don't see
There to be any?
I don't see any.
no.
That's all, okay. Item 89, approval, AMC Theater extension of hours. Is the representative from AMC here this evening?
I'm shocked.
Paul or John, do you have?
What's the name of that person?
Ryan, he was gonna come in person tonight.
Ryan, should we wait a little bit? Should we
Yeah,
postpone it for a few minutes? and
Move that down the agenda, please.
we can do that? They're usually here. Let's come back to that then. All right. Item 90 for discussion is the general bylaw review committee proposal. Are there members of the committee? I see some of them. Why don't you come on up and introduce yourselves and kind of walk us through this?
Love to.
I know you've got, it's like 4 separate articles that are similar in nature, all 4 of them.
Right.
To some degree. You have the floor.
All right. Good evening. I am Michelle Huntoon. I am a member of General Bylaw Review Committee. I am also a town meeting member for Precinct 1.
And I am Wendy Guthrow, a member of the Bylaw Review Committee and a resident of Precinct 2.
So, I sent out these documents ahead of time. They're slightly dense, they can be, and potentially bland. So I figured we could have some nice discussion about what we're trying to do, the point of what we're trying to do, and get some really good feedback and collaboration from all of you on how to best accomplish this. So as a lot of you may know, and have noticed, that these articles were originally on the warrant for the January town meeting. They were pulled off that warrant because it came to our committee's attention that there were a lot of groups that felt like they should have more input, which makes sense, absolutely. This is something that would impact a lot of different people in the town, not just town meeting, but also open meetings, committee meetings, commissions, boards. So we decided to withdraw the articles from January and take this time to rework them and work together with other members of the community. Some people have strong feelings one way or the other, so we want to get opinions and advice and input from everyone as far as how we can rework these and come up with a way to make these make sense so that when they do go on the warrant, which I believe our plan is not to put them on in May, but we're looking potentially for September, when they do go on, that everyone has had a say and we've been able to address concerns and put these in the best form possible.
There was a previous encouragement to try to get them on the warrant earlier because we were having an extension of the hybrid meeting laws come to cessation until Mass put it forward that now we have more time. So our urgency isn't there to have to put them on a warrant article on our own warrant. Yeah.
Yes. So if you'd like, I can give you just the in a nutshell version of what each document is trying to do. And then I'd like to open it up if possible to hear some feedback and, what pain points might be versus how we can do it better or what you think is already, kind of tightened up in here. So we have articles addressing town meeting, open meetings, and then there are documents that go along with them that are more of a formality, home rule petition, just to work on the state level to get these so that they are legally compliant to be able to be put in place for our town. So, we also have an article on here for an exemption for in-person quorum, which would allow for these hybrid meetings, not necessarily to be determined by numbers as far as who decides to participate in person versus remotely. It would give us the flexibility of having as many people as feel necessary to participate virtually. The articles mirror them each other pretty much. So a lot of the language you're gonna find is the same. They allow specifically for hybrid meetings to take place. They set out the definition of what a hybrid meeting is, which we've all experienced over the past few years. So you should all be familiar with that, but if you're not, let me know if you'd like any clarification on definitions. It allows for people to participate in a session remotely if they give notice, written notice or electronic notice, to either the chair of their committee or to the town clerk, depending on what meeting we're looking at. And it also sets a time requirement for that. It allows for language just stating that the conferencing platform has to be adequate, to shorten that, and has to allow for adequate participation. So the technology has to be there. We've seen it in play already, so I think we're pretty much covered on that, but obviously there would be a lot of considerations from departments who implement this. But luckily, because this is something that we've been doing, a lot of that should already be in place. that's the in a nutshell version of what we're trying to do. As far as the reasons for doing it, a lot of it just has to do with participation and allowing different groups to be a part of government. And that's not just groups that have, gained more visibility due to the pandemic because of their immunocompromised status or other health issues, but also people with hectic work schedules, parents with young children who are having an issue finding childcare, people who travel for work. So I think this is a concern that no matter where you initially feel like you fall on this issue, participation matters. And whereas we just had an election that had, I didn't even look to see how many uncontested races and how many open spots. I think this is something that could really help push us in the right direction to get more involvement and get these seats filled and get people to have a voice and create a better town, if that makes sense.
We're finding that most people that are interested in these articles and getting them through and having more hybrid meetings, that we're really trying to open up access to people. As Michelle said, whether they are handicapped individuals with disabilities that prevent them from physically attending a meeting, that they feel there's just too many barriers to just get from their home environment into maybe the high school auditorium, or whether it is immunocompromised people, or just for the sheer fact of convenience of them not having to figure out childcare situations, but to get there. But that our goal really is to get more people involved. And we think that this is a great opportunity for this town to really lead a lot of other towns in this state to say, this is how you get more people in the town of Burlington involved with how we run our town, how we operate our town, and just to get a voice heard and more participation at a much bigger and greater level. And even with the simple act of not letting weather get in the way of us being productive members and getting our agendas moved forward. We just think it's a really great idea. Now, as Michelle said, we are here as proponents of this, but we're not here to really advocate for it. We're here to hear some ideas of why it would work and why it wouldn't work. And let's figure out if it's not gonna work, let's see what can we do to maybe make it work, because we're really vested in trying to increase attendance in all ways.
And just to piggyback off of that very quickly, of note, we're not looking for a vote tonight. We're really just looking for your feedback so that we can take this back to our committee, rework it, and then come back for a vote at a later date after we've incorporated what you have for us.
All right, Michelle, Wendy, thank you both. When we open it up to the board, let me start down this end. Jim, you want to give me a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two quick questions. Was the town moderator involved in this process at all?
I believe that, did Phyllis reach out to him as part of the clerk?
We have currently reached out to all committees, and I think that the town moderator is one, but if not, we can easily reach out to him.
Yeah, the reason I ask is the town moderator is the one that calls the shots, and I think his input is extremely important with regards to something like this. The other question I have is, it states ability to identify and hear each member. Will members be required to have their video on during the meeting?
So that's something that we could clarify in the language. I think that overall, from what I've had for feedback from discussions already, that's what people would prefer.
Right.
The reason I mention it is because someone, and it has happened, where people have not put video on and they use someone else's name and they're basically impersonating someone online. Not saying it happened at a town meeting,
Yeah.
Right.
but to avoid having someone use a town meeting member's name or someone that's not even a town meeting member vote on something.
We like the idea of the cameras on.
I like that.
Yeah. We could, because, I mean,
Like
truly,
recess.
we do want to, we want to look into your eyes. We want to see what you're thinking. And if we're not going to be in person, I think we have to kind of have a very similar situation. Yeah.
All set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions, Jim, thank you. Let me stay to the left of the room here, then Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my first question, I think, centers around the biggest thing, which is open meeting law and being adherent to state law, right? Where do we stand with that when it comes to this?
So, interestingly enough, in recent weeks, the state legislature actually passed an extension to the ability for towns to conduct meetings hybrid or virtually under open meeting law. So that's extended through March 31st, 2025. And then we're working with town council on this when we get it to, you know, the right level where we're ready to move forward. We're working with town council to make sure we're doing this the right way and remaining in compliance, because obviously, if we get all the way to the finish line and we're not legally compliant, then this was a big waste of time.
Yeah, no, for sure. The reason I ask is because in 2019, before we even knew the pandemic was coming, not that we knew it was coming, I championed the remote participation policy that we passed, which covers off on a lot of what you're aiming to achieve. You know, but the biggest restrictions that we found were that we couldn't become any less restrictive than what open meeting law currently allows for. Right? So while we exist in this, you know, we'll call it a temporary state, even though it's been extended to 2025, at a certain point, that's going to eventually go away. I would assume, right? I could be very wrong, and the state legislature could say, hey, you know what? We're gonna move and we're gonna adapt open meeting law and be a 21st century, you know, to take a 21st century approach, because I have my own issues when it comes to even like shared documents, right? And the way people comment on it and how that can really hinder, you know, effective workflow,
Yeah.
right? You know, this seems to take that one next step past open meeting law, and that only has me concerned a little bit, right? Because what I don't want to do is enact something at
Yeah.
this scale, right? And then have the state in 3 years go, hey, you guys are really out of bounds.
Yeah.
You know, across the board, and we're gonna nullify, you know, a lot of votes that you took.
We realize we
Yeah.
have to complement that.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
If I could follow up with another question, or I guess this is a comment really. In my own experience, I've had a really hard time with hybrid environments. For me, either everyone together or everyone remote are two effective ways to manage a room because everyone's experiencing the same thing, right? But especially in a situation like this where, you know, I mean, it's, I think from an infrastructure perspective, town meeting has its own, you know, concerns and issues there, right? But I think that in a setting like this, having everybody remote for those couple of years wasn't a bad experience, right? But to have some of us here and some of us not can be a really hard thing to manage, right? So I think from an infrastructure perspective, you know, while it's not entirely, you know, the General Bylaw Review Committee's, you know, job to do it, I think you really need to think about like what the infrastructure needs to look like and what kind of trainings and equipment and things that would help assuage people's concerns if they were gonna, you know, vote in the affirmative for something like this. Because without knowing what that is, what that looks like, it can be really daunting to have to say, you know, sure, 100 of you can be online and 26 of you can be in the room and we're gonna somehow have an effective debate and discussion on something without proper, you know, moderation and proper equipment to handle it, right? And then to Jim's point, the concern around, you know, voter fraud, you know, extends beyond, you know, a person's name and really just like how are all the votes truly being tallied in the system? So just logistical things I think to think about as we trade on.
I'm just wondering, so I just got on a town meeting last year, and as part of that, myself and I think 6 other people were brand new to it, and Amy did a like boot camp where we came in for our orientation, and I'm wondering if this is something that went into play. I mean, there are a lot of people that have experienced remote work at this point. It's very familiar to some, but it's very unfamiliar to others. And a lot of those people, you know, may or may not be part of town meeting. So I'm not sure how we'd go about it because I'm very new to town government, but I'm wondering if it might make sense to do some kind of technology orientation session. If this goes into play, just to try to address questions and be like, hey, this is how you make sure that your hand is down. This is how, like, just double check that you're unmuted, or more complicated issues, whatever they may be. So that's something that I think I'll bring up. And if any of you have input on that or think it would be useful, I can definitely make a note of it.
I think it was the town of Brookline, maybe, that had passed this already, that they've accepted it into their town, and that we've been trying to communicate with them to figure out what hurdles are they encountering that we're likely to encounter as well. So it's nice to have someone going before us, that we will bring that up as a talking point with them to see if we can kind of figure out logistically, how are we seeing a hand raised? And to your point, maybe it would be a nice idea to just do a ramp-up seminar, but I think we have a lot of little things like that to work out.
Yeah.
But in order for us to be successful, to get the diversity and the attendance that we're really looking for, I think we need to deal with those technology issues. I think are going to be paramount to getting us a solution that's positive.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Moretti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick things. This is new to older guys like me, I'll say it that way. All the technology and stuff, and it's the way things are gonna start to turn out in the long run. So I commend you for going forward with this and try to get some virtual and some hybrid on this. But like these guys said, I'd like to hear from the moderator to see what
Yeah.
he's the one that, I mean, a couple times when we did it the other way, talking to him afterwards, it was like, who's talking, who's not talking, no, you're not turn, go back and forth. All those kind of things have to be all ironed out. I don't think it's a bad thing, but there are a lot of questions to be answered along the way between Nick's, and there's questions that I have, and I'll reach out later on. I'd like to sit down and actually talk about it for a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay? So thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
that sounds great.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thank you for taking this on. I think it's an important thing that we, as a town, should discuss. And this is a tough one. I'm not really a fan of the hybrid meetings, and we've all been through the town meetings where, the hybrid people can't, the people online can't hear, or we can't hear the gallery. And the town meeting form of government, this is like a 2023 technology meets 1799 form of government. So we're kind
Great way
of
to
trying to
put it.
blend the two worlds that we're in, and I get it. And it's sitting in that town meeting when we're hybrid, it's very frustrating when half the room can't hear, and it's frustrating for everyone. All of that said, I think anything we can do to increase participation, increase attendance, because we know that town meeting attendance is sometimes lacking, is a good thing, but we just have to figure out where the pain points are. I do like the idea of the cameras on the whole time. Also, I think if we can check with other towns and see what they do differently as far as technology goes, and again, as Nick said, to streamline our processes to make it smoother, anything we can do to make it smoother. I think with our, like the smaller meetings, like our meeting and planning board, the hybrid works it's a little easier. But when we get to the big room full of town meeting of like 150 people, it's so frustrating when, we're sitting there half the time and we're trying to figure out who's speaking and who's raised, but it's a tough conundrum to try and to solve this one, and I commend your issues and look forward to the further discussion.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and we have thought that we have a lot of the equipment and the technology already
Yeah,
to do it. I mean, it's not really a big financial investment, and that our goal really is to use what we have and to develop processes that will eventually become intuitive, even for a moderator that may not really, like it right now, but that if we can get our processes worked out and using the technology that we already have, that we're optimistic that we can find ways to make this work. And as to your point, really, to increase participation. We even thought about the snow delay, that we recently had at town meeting, and we just think, it would be great to find some way to have that be part of our past, from a financial perspective, from a delay perspective, from a safety perspective, that it just seems like if we can maybe just try to be a leader when it comes to how do towns use technology to get their agenda and their focus and their goals met. We think that we have great brain power here. Let's try to use it.
I do like the idea of the training sessions, just hopefully, I don't know, sometimes people are like ashamed to reach out to do that, right? Because they don't want to seem like, so that would be hard to get everyone to get buy-in, but those training sessions could definitely help and make things smoother.
Yeah.
It's funny, I picture like the guys in 1799 out in the common having their town meeting, and now us today trying to figure out how do we do it remotely and via computer. It's just a definite, a mixing and blending of two different worlds. It's
Like,
kinda-
ask Joe how they did it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, guys.
Smoke signals.
Wow, throwing stones. Mr. Chairman, can I ask a couple
Sure,
more questions?
go right ahead, yeah.
Thank you. If you haven't already, talked to Amy, town clerk.
Yep.
She's got plenty of thoughts and opinions in this regard, and I think that her input would be extremely valuable, especially when it comes to the logistical end of things. And then just, knowing that we're still in this, pandemic-esque, form of operation, since the pandemic started, do we know roughly, like, have you done any, I guess, like, through anecdotal talking to folks, ascertained like a percentage or a number of folks who otherwise would not have been involved in local government, but because of the way things are currently structured, have gotten involved?
No.
I think I can only speak to our own committee, that we are, we have some immune-compromised people on our committee that could not be part of the bylaw review committee, but for it being remote access.
Yeah.
So, and that's a very small microcosm of a much larger situation.
Oh, for sure.
But as far as numbers, no, I don't think we've really hammered anything out. I don't know how we could really,
Yeah, I mean, it's really just like anecdotal, like you have to just be kind of asking people as you
Yeah.
talk to them. The only reason I ask is because, we're talking about trying to increase participation, right? And the last 3 years, we haven't, the last year alone, I spent, yammering on my soapbox about how we need more volunteers, right? So, in this current environment, people aren't coming out of the woodwork to help volunteer. So like, any extra statistics or information that we can help provide, again, if you're trying to support this, like, we need to know how many more folks we can reach, to then actually pull back into the volunteer pool of bodies of people that we can, work with. Otherwise, folks are gonna say, hey, from 2018 to 2023, you're talking about maybe 15 people across the entirety of boards, committees, and town meeting, so how is that enough people for me to really be worried, right? So I think like, in terms of like a larger objection handler, that's something that you might wanna try to poke holes at.
Or the numbers of people like who attended the meeting that otherwise couldn't have, or I wish we had the breakdown on the last few town meetings of the hybrid ones on how many people attended in person versus hybrid, to
could
see those
probably
numbers and
get
look at
that.
them.
Yeah.
yeah.
On a personal, maybe even a selfish basis, I've sort of grown partial to these hybrid remote meetings myself. I'm on a number of subcommittees, I'm on a number of, attend a lot of focus group meetings and so on and so forth. Now, if I hadn't been able to do this from the comfort of my own home, my participation level would, I'm sure, be diminished. But having said that, Wendy, you mentioned one community recently adopted similar proposal. Has that moved through the home rule petition process at the state legislature
Brookline.
level yet?
I think they're
it
in
did.
it now. Do you think they got through it yet? I don't think so.
No, I feel like we talked to them last fall, but maybe.
I don't know how
Maybe
long
they
it
haven't.
takes, but they
You'd have to
had
check
gotten
on
the town
that.
approval, and now they're waiting
Just
for,
curious,
Yeah.
with the, at the state level, what the thought process is
yeah, we'll
there.
see if we can get some updated situation from them and figure out where they're at with the legislation.
Yeah, and then, I guess my last question is to Paul and John. I know we've been attempting to address the various meeting locations that we typically use here in Burlington to accommodate remote. Are we in good position that way? I know this room is set up. Are we still in the process of setting up like Grandview and other locations in town that we typically use for committee meetings?
It's really just this facility here, as well as the school committee room at the high school, are the two areas where we have most of the meetings that are broadcast on TV and have the equipment for virtual. So we definitely would need to expand a few locations if all the committees were going to be operating under these rules, as opposed to perhaps just, some of the smaller committees still meet in person, and, a lot of committees aren't even on camera. So we definitely would need to probably find a few more spaces within the town that we could have some of this equipment set up to allow for it.
Yeah, I would think so. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear, I was not aware that the legislature extended
Yeah,
the process for another 12 months, so that gives us a little breathing room to
yeah,
address some of these questions, so.
more than 12 months, right?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years,
2 years.
2 years, yeah,
That's why I'm asking.
Right.
I'm just reading the screen there, okay.
Through the chair to Mr. Sagarino. Is the annex also set up for, I thought it had some advanced technology in the annex building in the basement.
Yes, I'm not aware that I've ever attended a hybrid over there, but we do have technology in the basement.
In that one.
Sherry's
Sherry's
working in the
shaking her
back.
head, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Selectman Renzi,
Yeah,
follow
just
up?
have one more question. Cost. Is the cost to do this thing, I know I can get on this and go, but if you're doing a whole town meeting thing, this room is acceptable, is there a new technology that we have to buy? Is there a cost or not? I guess that's the big question.
So we have done some research on cost. Amy did send something out last June to, I think, a lot of different people on town meeting with one number. And then since then, one of our committee members has spoken to Amy again to get updates on that, but we don't have an actual itemization. So it'd be really great to get something solid. But from what our chair and our committee has put together, it looks like it wouldn't be that much of an increase in cost, just because the license for WebEx has already been purchased. There's a lot of money budgeted for town meeting that still gets spent either way, whether it's hybrid or not. Sound engineer, for example, is needed whether we're remote or not. Same with IT personnel expenses, I think, are questionable. Equipment has already been purchased. It had to be purchased during the pandemic. So that is a big question, and that's one of the concerns I've heard from people is cost, how much is it? And I think that's something we need to get a solid answer on before we move forward, because it's gonna be hard to have any kind of discussion without saying, well, this is what we'd be spending. So it's on our radar. We're trying to get solid numbers on that.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, we do have a lot of fixed costs already. That from the research we've done so far, we found that we do have a lot of the technology already. But I think I agree with Michelle that we really have to get those hammered out, and we will do that before final presentation.
Good.
Because we feel like it needs to be as close to budget neutral as possible, right? It can't sink us, It has to be a very positive thing in all ways. And we also think that we have very good IT brains in the town to really help us figure out those things as well. So,
We do indeed. Selectman Priest, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, as we're talking, more questions keep popping in my head. I promise for the last one. As it pertains to the boards and committees, journal article amendment, the language is written as that they may hold these meetings as hybrid, right? So that means that boards and committees need to opt into this, but they don't have to, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so like it stands now, if we said, you know what, no, we're not gonna do this, we're gonna be full in person, it's within our
And be
power.
full in person, yeah. It's a concern that I've heard repeatedly from people who are kind of opposed to it is, well, if it's hybrid, then no one's gonna show up. Well, we know from experience, and we've had hybrid meetings, that most people still wanna show up. I'm in favor of this, and I still plan on attending in person. It's just, a lot of this is to help increase participation from people who are already disabled, and now, based on COVID-19 being a thing, fall into that category as well. So this also helps as far as ADA compliance, and being a reasonable accommodation to people who were already classified as disabled and now, based on other conditions and being exposed to a virus like this, could also fall into that category, as well as people with work schedules and childcare issues. So it's not forcing anyone to do something one way or the other, it's giving everyone the choice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? All set? All set here, guys?
Almost, yep, thank you.
Michelle, Wendy, thank you very much. Interesting discussion. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us some time on the agenda today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and if anyone wants to talk about this further, just let us know.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I believe Ryan Wilmot is online,
I don't know.
AMC Theaters.
AMC Theaters.
Oh, is that right?
I think it was my fault.
Okay.
I'm too.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. All right, let me back up. An item. Bear with me, guys. Me, Ryan, you're out there, are you? Okay.
Okay, item 89, approval, AMC Theater extension of hours, May 4th, 7th, and May 12th through 14th. Welcome, Ryan. You've got the floor. You want to give us a summary of what you're looking for tonight from the board?
Yeah. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, so this would be an extension of hours just to coincide with the opening of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's not a particularly long movie. It's nowhere near like Avatar or anything like that. But being able to have guests in the building to 2 a.m. Would allow me to have like 11 o'clock shows that would let out around 1:45, and all guests would be off site by 2 a.m. I've already reached out to Officer Outerbridge requesting the appropriate coverage that I would need if I was approved for these dates, and that's about it.
Okay, Ryan. Gentlemen, we've, AMC, the frequent guest here at our board. This is not an unusual request, but let me start to my right this time. Michael, have you got any questions for Ryan regarding?
You guys have done a good job every time we've extended the hours. The alcohol hours are going to stay the same as normal. You're not going to extend those or anything? Right.
Yeah, he keeps muting himself, so.
Sorry, my dog started barking. So correct. Alcohol hours would stay the same. That's typically closed down around like 10:15, 10 o'clock if it's a really good night. This is just about a long movie and having guests on the property.
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Morandi?
No, we've done it before, and Mike asked the question, I'm well set with it.
Yeah, they've been pretty good
No
neighbors,
reason
huh? Yeah.
not to, they've been great about this before in the past, so it's 2 weekends, 1 2-day and 1 3-day weekend, so easy.
Yeah, Mr. Priest, quick.
Nothing from me, no, thank you.
Nothing here.
Take it. Well, there being none, Paul, do you have anything to add to?
No, sir, I was just going to ask about the alcohol hours, but since we're remaining the same on those, then I think this is a good request. And the theater has always complied with the late extended hours, and we haven't had any issues whatsoever to
You know,
know.
they've been pretty darn good to us. I'm not aware of any either. All right, if there were no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve, open until 2 a.m. Thursday, 5/4 through Sunday, 5/7, and then again the following weekend, 5/12, 5/13, and 5/14.
Second.
With the alcohol being the way that it is all the time. I don't know, what way to put that.
No change in the alcohol.
No change alcohol. Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay, so a motion from Joe.
Second.
I think I heard a second from Michael Dunn. Anything further on the agenda item? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
I oppose, abstain, 5-0-0. Okay, Ryan, my friend, you're all set.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
Next
Next
item,
item,
item 91, approval
approval
of
of
Middlesex
Middlesex
retirement cost of living adjustment. I'm going to hand the discussion over to the vice chairman on this item. I have a direct interest in this discussion, and I will intend to abstain on that matter. So Joe, take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, as you all know, it's the retirement board that's going through this, and Mr. Giannino's here to go over it, I'm assuming. So that's what you came up for? To sit and talk with us a little bit about this?
The Chapter 269 of the Acts of 2022 gave a local option for a one-time increase of cost of living increase, most people call that the COLA, to retirees for fiscal year 2023. That increase was from 3 to 5%. So it's a 2% increase over the normal cost of living, and that's based on the first 16,000 of a retiree's pension. The system was set so that different retirement boards have to vote on this. Middlesex County, 2/3 of the members of Middlesex County have to approve this by June of 2023, and it was left to the select boards or councils or whatever governing executive board was in that community. So we're looking for two-thirds vote of the different entities within the district. So that's what we're here tonight to discuss or have the board approve or disapprove of that 2% increase. It comes roughly to about $118,000 effect. It won't be really funded until next year after, so it won't really affect the town's liability. It will be taken out of the Middlesex County. It will be added in along the way to what that liability will be, the assessment will be.
Thank you.
A lot of, I think Paul has the amount of community, you have a better read on the votes to date?
Yes, we've been tracking the votes from the other communities that share the retirement system with us, and they've been unanimously in favor. As Town Treasurer Giannino has pointed out, if you are receiving a pension in excess of $16,000, then the maximum benefit you'll receive is $320 in the year. So it's a small but meaningful increase given to the retirees based upon inflation. And partially the reason why it came up was due to the fact that Social Security had recently given a larger than typical adjustment to those collecting Social Security due to the inflation that we've been experiencing recently here in the country, so.
Thank you, Mr. Sanguino. I'll start with Mr. Espejo, because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'll just start with Mr. Espejo. Any questions or comments?
No, no questions at all.
Mr. Tigas?
I will be abstaining as well, as I'm also.
Mr. Priest?
I will also be abstaining, as I have family who is currently utilizing the retirement benefits.
Mr. Runyon already said that he will be abstaining from this. So, at this point, we have no questions. It's me and you, boss.
All right.
So, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it a motion to approve the request of the Middlesex County Retirement Board for the one-time increased cost of living adjustment for FY 2023.
Can I second that as vice chair? Yeah, I can. Second?
Yep.
Asking protocol here. So, motion seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? All those abstain?
Aye.
Abstentions? 2-4.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just want to point out for the board that that's not a successful vote due to the lack of quorum. So we will submit that as well as the details to Middlesex County, and we'll see how they want to proceed with that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bring it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for the help, appreciate that. Item 92, approval department budget fiscal year 2024.
Thank you,
Where are
Mr. Chairman.
Where are you starting?
So inside your book in the cover, there's a copy of all the, so tonight we'll be approving the remaining departments, or the rest of the operating budget that this board is in charge of. And we'll get it started on a handful, maybe 10 warrant articles. And that will leave us with about 20, which is about the same we're doing tonight, about the same as we've done at our next meeting. So I asked Mr. Giannino to stay with us in case we had any questions for him on a few of the budget items, but you'll see in your packet, the first couple pages is a summary sheet. So we're gonna start with those. And those are the budgets that we're gonna be reviewing right now. The first one being, we're gonna do the rest of the central administration budget, with the first line being unemployment. The unemployment budget for FY '24 is $100,000, which is the same as FY '23 and probably very many years before that too. There's a 0% increase for $0. This unemployment funds all town and school employees within that budget line. I think our 5-year average is about $70,000, and that's skewed a little low because of COVID, and about $87,000 if you go back to a 10-year average. So we didn't recommend increasing or decreasing this budget line. Mr. Chair, do you want me to go through them all?
Actually, if you wouldn't mind, and if the board agrees, why don't you go through your list, and if anybody wants to hold any particular item, just shout out, and we'll circle back, and clarification on it. How's that? Fair enough? Okay.
One more thing to add on unemployment is that the town is self-funded for unemployment, which means we pay the claims as we incur them, rather than a private company that may pay a percentage of payroll into, to buy unemployment insurance. And that has traditionally saved the town quite a bit of money over time. The next line is Chapter 32B, Employee Benefits. The bulk of this, which is health insurance, which is why Mr. Giannino is here. This budget will be for, as you can see, just over $16 million this year. It was $15.6 million last year. That's a $615,000 increase, or just under 4%. I'd like to point out the great work performed by the committee that manages this, Mr. Giannino being the top of that committee. A 4% increase is unheard of in the municipal world. One of the benefits for us is that we're self-insured, which scared me when I first got here, but now that I've learned more about it, it's quite a benefit for us that more towns are looking to go back to this model, which was very popular back in the day. So the towns that are in a consortium buying their health insurance with others, so they have a lot more buying power, they're seeing increases in the double digits year after year. So kudos to those folks. This is the health insurance. This is the town's portion of the health insurance for all employees, town and school side. Medicare is next. 1.1389,291 is the FY '24 budget. It's up $66,000 from last year, about 5%. That's because the average increase in our salaries year over year, in all of our salary lines year over year, is about 5%. When you add in the wage adjustments and the steps that exist in most contracts. So we increased that line by about 5%. And this is to cover the town's share of Medicare tax for all school and town employees. Of that 5% increase has been what the trend has been for us, the past many years. OPEB transfer is, as you can see, just over $1 million at $1,018,430. That's up $86,655, or 9.3% year over year. You're used to hearing us talk about this. That's part of the plan that was put together some time ago. I think we're in the 9th year of that plan, or 8th or 9th year of that 40-year plan that we were going to increase about 9.3% over that time to be fully funded at the end of that plan. A few years ago, we deviated a little bit from it because of COVID and the unknown revenue numbers we were experiencing. However, we were able to make up that difference, and over the past several years, we've been able to, or over the past 5 years, a couple times, we were able to add additional contributions to the OPEB trust funds, which then get calculated when we do our actuarial study, which is done every 2 years and in the process of being done now through December 31st, 2022. We expect this summer to get the preliminary numbers back and next fall to be looking at that plan again and seeing if we're staying on that same plan or if we need some adjustments. Next is town insurance, which includes workers' comp. This is our general liability insurance and also includes our workers' compensation insurance, which is 1.389291. It's up a little bit, the percent-wise, 12.35%, which is kind of what we expected. We've had, our experience rate hasn't been great the last couple of years, so we're feeling the heat on that a little bit. This is something we check every year. We have a consultant we use, and we don't go through the full bid process, but we bid it out every year. And this is what the results are for this year. This also includes workers' comp, which we are self-funded for. 12.35% on that one. Next one, Middlesex Retirement System, which we just heard a little bit about. Our assessment for next year is $13,403,482. That's up $860,047, sorry, or 6.86%. This covers the town's contribution to the Middlesex Retirement System that Mr. Giannino was just talking about. This assessment is calculated through their actuarial study, so they take our actual folks that belong in there, and they go through the actuarial study, and then come up with what our number is for the following 2 years before they do another actuarial study. This includes a discount. They offer a discounted number if you pay one payment versus 2 payments. You can pay them either in July and January, or July and December, or just July, and you get a discounted rate. This number takes that into account. We've done that for a number of years now, taking advantage of that savings there. Next line is negotiated settlements. The original budget, so the budget for next year is $208,000, an increase of $153,000, or a percent increase of 276. But before you get the sticker shock, this one is a little bit tricky because if you remember, the original budget for next year was $872,000 because we had no contracts in place. As we settled those contracts, we transfer the money from this account into the budgets, the department budgets, where the employees that are covered by that contract are paid. So as we transfer that out, that number comes down. Next year, we have contracts for all of our unions, and the only outstanding compensation plan would be the A&P. So this is the number that we anticipate would cover in any A&P compensation plan change. 2 more quick ones. The capital improvements, $400,000 last year, $400,000 this year, 0% increase. This covers our 4th of 5 annual lease payments for our technology lease, sometimes called the Cisco lease. This is what we have to go to town meeting for to get approval to do 5-year lease. We refresh all of our IT hardware throughout the town, switches, access points, phones, things like that. So this is just payment number 4 of 5. Last one, debt service, $8,188,670, an increase of $582,000 or 7.66. That's just the existing and proposed debt of our plan that exists for FY24. That seems like a big number, but that's probably going to be the lowest. That number's going to be bigger than that for the next about 10 years. You may remember we had a debt summit last year and talked about our budget going from 8 million to 18 million over 10 years based on our debt plan, but the caveat was that that's the plan. It's pretty fluid, and things change as we move on. So that's just what the result was for this year. Mr. Chairman, that's the last one in the operating budget, and I'm happy to go, I know I blew right through them, so I'm happy to go
That's,
through.
no, that's
Do
fine.
any,
We got 3 accountants in the room, thank goodness you got 3 of them, I don't understand anything you just. So, I'm sure we have some questions, some of the increases, I'm sure caught your attention. Jim, let me start down here. You got,
Just
anything you wanna
one-
zero in on there?
Not a question, but this, the negotiated settlements, I think that needs to be explained in depth when you present it to town meeting. I mean, we get a good summary from you and Whitney on how that works. And because it's such a high percentage number, I just think that that's gonna have to be delineated out to town meeting and to make it very, very clear to them, the members, why it's such a big percentage increase. And even though it's a smaller dollar amount, but a big percentage increase, I just think that needs to be very, very clear when presenting it. That's all, just a comment, not really a
Yeah,
question.
we get that question every year, Jim, and
So, yeah,
it's a guaranteed question for us every year, so we're accustomed to having to sort of refresh town meeting with the mechanics of that account and why the percentage looks so funny.
trying to just, head it off at the pass, so to speak, knowing it's gonna be held, have the answers ready for any questions that come up when it's held.
We're just prepping you for town meeting here tonight. Nick?
Thank you. I guess, yeah, I agree with Jim, any additional explanation is good. It's hard to argue with the numbers, right? Without making serious systematic change to how we've been doing things. So I don't really have any questions with that regard. I actually would like to ask a tangential question, and that is at some point, if we could talk about like how we bond stuff and how that process works, as we enter into, what we keep hearing is like school, police station, whatever, like all these like huge ticket items, right? It's like we casually see $400,000 for capital. Capital improvements just kind of hanging around there. I know there's a lot more on the periphery, excuse me, but I'd love to like tackle that as a topic of conversations with a better understanding of what we're looking at from that standpoint of things. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Mr. Morandi?
I have nothing.
Mr. Spahl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just back to the negotiated settlements, Selectman Tiggins took my question. Is there a way to kind of project what it will be after the money's taken out of there? So you kind of have a in parentheses percentage at the end of the year, or is that not possible?
I'm sorry, do you mean for next year or this year?
Because that is so large, because stuff will be taken out and put into the appropriate account, right?
Ideally, all of it, probably.
Okay, so ideally, it'll be zero at the end of the year.
Right, and then the following year, there'll be another 200,000 for the A&P, and it'll be, 1,000% increase or something, because it's how it works. We end up explaining it at town meeting
Yeah.
every year.
I guess there's no real way to kind of project what it will be, because you don't know how things are going to settle out.
Correct, we try to estimate it based upon what we think the cost of the contracts will be, at the same time without tipping our hand as to how much money we have available for each contract, et cetera. So
Yeah, that, all right.
The harder one is when it goes the other way, and you're actually decreasing it by a number. Having that conversation is not really a decrease.
Right, yeah. I guess
And then year 4, when there's no more contracts, if you don't have contracts in place, now the number goes back up to that 900,000 range.
like last year. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's a tough question.
Mr. Chairman, I have one quick follow-up.
Sure, go right ahead.
Just to get back to the point about, this is the last compensation plan. How, all the other unions have contracts, when do we anticipate, when's the next one expiring? In other words, when do we have to look forward to starting to put money away?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
So right now, all of our union are in year 1 of 3-year contracts. So we have 2 more years of those. This group is not a union, is not a recognized union, and can't have multiple year contracts. So we're always gonna have the A&P.
Okay,
Will be 1 year at a time.
thank you. I'll send Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have to circle back again, the health insurance benefit, the numbers over the last several years have been pretty remarkably low in terms of what other communities and other employers are paying. We just, I can't tell you what a good job I think that we've been doing in that regard. And I know you guys and gals and our whole team work on these budgets year-round. This is not, you don't sit down in the last quarter of the fiscal year and come up with these numbers. It's something you work on all year long, and I want to thank you for the time and effort that you put into this and keep Burlington in a good financial position. So thank you for all of your hard work, everybody here and those behind the scenes as well. All right, are you looking for a motion, John, to accept the remaining list of accounts?
Yes, sir. What was presented, that will be it for the operating budget, then we can move on to the warrants.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve budgets for unemployment, Chapter 32B, employee benefits, Medicare, OPEB transfer, town insurance, workers' compensation, Middlesex retirement, negotiated settlements, capital improvements, and debt service.
motion from Selectman Tigas.
Second.
Second from Mr. Moretti. Any further discussion on the budget presented tonight? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. So listen, the next item, agenda item, but before we get to town meeting warrant articles, just one particular item that's just been sort of gnawing at me a little bit. I don't know, Paul, if you want to talk about it or not, or rather not. The Shawshene, proposed Shawshene school budget for the coming year. We haven't talked about it officially here. We've seen some preliminary numbers that they've provided.
Yes.
Did not with our guidelines, not even close to our guidelines that the rest of our departments operate on. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about it. It's an annoying little piece of
Yeah, I will just say that
information.
it's been a working process. Those folks are working with their Ways and Means Subcommittee now. Our Shawshene School Committee representatives have been great to work with. Christine McKinnon and Kent Moffett have been very welcoming. Shawshene has a new team in place, new superintendent, new finance person. So we've had a couple of difficulties in getting information in the same way that we have in previous years. And we're, trying to take into account that they have a new team, but at the same time, just, Burlington as well as the other communities in the district just want, to let them know that, we've strongly supported the school over the years and we want to continue to have a great relationship like we've had for many years. And, we're ironing out some wrinkles, and we're not quite there yet, but hopefully we will be, and I feel confident that we'll get there.
So we're still having some dialogue on.
Yes.
Okay, all right, keep us posted on that one. Thank you very much. John, what are we moving on to? Warrant articles?
Moving on to warrant articles.
You have the floor again, my friend.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we're going to review warrant articles, starting with Article number 6. Do you want me to do the same thing, go through them all?
Yes, please.
And you'll hold them if you, okay.
Yes, please.
So Article 6, an annual article that you're used to. It does come with a little wrinkle this year, as we're asking to change. What Article 6 does is it sets the expenditure limit for certain revolving accounts that are part of the bylaw through Municipal Modernization Act from years ago that we don't need to get into the details. It's in the detailed memo from Whitney Haskell in the backup. But for 4 of these annual expenditure limits, we're asking to increase the expenditure limit for this coming year. They've been in place since 2017, and some of them, quite frankly, we just need to up them a little bit. They are for cross-connection fees, sales of recycled materials, sealer of weights and measures, and the local transportation. I think during the budget presentations for sealer and the local transpo, we talked a little bit about that they were gonna cost more than the sealer. We're doing that a little differently now. We're not exactly sure how much it's gonna cost, so we wanna make sure that we have the ability to spend to the limit just in case. And also with the local transportation, it's getting more and more popular, so we wanna make sure that we have the ability to spend to that limit. It might be a little bit misleading because we're only putting $100,000 in there, and that's the amount we're saying we can spend, but we also have some that's already in the revolving account that we'll get down to. And there's a, as I said, there's a detailed memo that you're used to seeing from Whitney Haskell each year in there. The next one is acceptance of Chapter 90. You'll see in your backup packet, there's the letter that identifies the number for this year. This is just an acceptance of those funds. Chapter 90 funds, as everybody here knows, is used for our street paving program. And that number is, as you can see, $1,071,000. Next one is the MWRA I&I inflow and infiltration debt service. This is, we borrow money from the MWRA to do the I&I work. It comes in the form of 75% grant and a 25% of it being a loan. On that 25% loan that we have to pay back, it's 0%. We have 3 outstanding loans going into next year. You'll see a 4th one listed there because when we get to Article 14, you'll find out why. But all this does is authorize us to spend and pay that debt service out of the money we collect for I&I. The next one is the Sewer Enterprise Fund. This just sets the expenditure limit for the Sewer Enterprise Fund. When you see the warrant, you'll see that this is for $6 million. I have it. $6.44 million, and of that, 201,000 will be coming from retained earnings. So the way it works, we set this budget for the enterprise fund, and we pay for our sewer, MWRA sewer treatment assessments from there, some debt service from there, and some maintenance from there. So it's not all of the sewer costs, it's just a small portion of it, so it's not a real full-blown enterprise fund, it's sort of an enterprise fund light. And when our sewer rates aren't estimated to cover it, you can use some of the retained earnings. And retained earnings in an enterprise fund is like free cash from the regular general fund. So we have in there $2 million save of retained earnings. We're gonna earmark about 200,000 of it, that if our revenues don't meet what the expenditures are, we'll use those to cover that. Next one is something you're used to seeing in May the last few years, is the Water Stabilization Fund. In January, we take the excess revenues that we got from our rate increase in water that closed to free cash. We move them into the stabilization fund in January, and then in May, we come back and say, we want this money to be transferred to cover the costs in the operating fund. This year's total is $1.285 million. Next one, Article 12, is to fund a fire aerial tower truck. You can see the backup in the memo, it's about $2 million. The truck is 20 years old now-ish. It's due on replacement, it's been on a replacement plan. We kicked it out a couple of years, but now, with the supply chain issues, they expect production of this truck to take a couple of years. So, we don't wanna push it, we don't wanna continue to push it and have it, that much further out. The next one is water main upgrade and replacement. This is one of those ones you see every other year. So, I guess in even numbered years, we come and we ask for 1.5 million to continue to, upgrade and replace water mains throughout the town. And then in odd numbered years, we do the paving, the 3.5 million for paving, parking lots and sidewalks. So this is a water main year. This is one you see, each year. For these two items that I just talked about, normally we put them on as a borrow. They show up on our debt plan. We worked with Ways and Means to see if it makes sense for us to use some free cash to pay for those, and it looks like that's the will of that group this year is to pay for those with free cash and keep them off our debt plan. So that will be good. Item 14 is next. This is, I mentioned earlier, this is MWRA, I&I. This is our phase 14. This is our 14th time doing this. So it's $1.2 million. So as I said before, it's a 75-25. So 900,000 of that will be a grant we don't have to pay back. And then 300,000 will be a 10-year, 0% loan that we'll pay 30,000 a year for. 15 is an annual. This is another, technically it's another enterprise fund that for our local cable access. This is the charges that are on the subscriber's bill from each of the cable companies that provide service in town. It's collected, it's paid to us, and then we act as a pass-through to pay it to the BCAT. And so we have to establish the total for the enterprise fund each year. So you can see that's 585,000 for this year. 4th of July parade. I don't think I need to add anything about 4th of July parade. It's $20,000 asked for this year. And then the last one is a non-financial article. So I don't know if we want to take those, if that one's separate, but I can at least go over it and we can vote separate. That is, you can see that was a change in the bylaw for construction time on Saturdays to move 2 hours back in the morning and 2 hours back in the evening. And instead of going from 9 to 7, it will go from 7 to 5. And that was proposed by Selectman Morandi, so if I said anything wrong, you can correct me.
Perfectly, couldn't have been any better.
Gentlemen, yeah, that was a lot, John, thank you. In fact, I got a lot. I was dying to find out what bird netting is all about, but we're gonna have to wait till another day. Selectman Spaho, let's start down there, and any questions on the...
Just a quick question out of curiosity's sake on the tower truck. You said that we put it off a couple of years, and I said it takes 3 or 4 years to actually even get one. Are we gonna be okay with the current truck with coverage and everything, and is everything, is it gonna be okay until the new one comes? Or are we gonna be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the feedback was that we'll make it, but we shouldn't push it off anymore. I think when we first started pushing it off, we didn't think it was gonna take 4 years to make it, because it didn't used to.
Right.
And hopefully it won't. I mean, that's just CYA, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question.
Mr. Morandi?
No, I have nothing.
Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me see, I might ping pong around here, so I apologize. Article 15, so you said that for the paid cable access, typically it's $5.85 based on subscriber count. Do we know, this is, I guess, just a big airball question, like as subscriptions fall, right, as people maybe pick up, streaming access on things where this isn't counted into that, can we maintain that number? Like, I guess what I'm trying to get to is I don't want to see the funding drop, and then BCAT not be able to do or grow.
Well, so that's a good question. So the 585 is a not to exceed number, and the way it works is we forward the revenues as we get them from the cable companies. So if there was a considerable drop in cable receipt revenue for us, that would translate to BCAT, because we don't have a funding pool would offset any of that 585.
So this is
So
just.
that's not us appropriating 585.
Okay.
That's just allowing us to act as the pass-through of those revenues.
Okay. And I guess Paul, go.
Oh, I would just say, Nick, that
you would expect to see a drop-off at some point. I don't know that we've seen a dramatic drop-off yet, but there's a lot of threats to this revenue. I know that the cable companies themselves have been arguing to the FCC that they shouldn't have to pay these fees for local cable, so there are unfortunately a lot of threats to that funding source for our local cable television. But we haven't noticed a dramatic drop-off in revenue at this point.
And then I guess at this point, my only other question is, the hours change from 9 to 7 to 7 to 5. That pertains to everyone from, you know, a construction company building a house to a guy wanting to work in his yard? Yes?
I'm pretty sure it's
Yes.
for everybody, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured if I'll explain that, do you mind?
It's the town bylaw for what time anyone can start.
What time banging can start happening?
Correct.
The hammer can hit the nail, okay. Okay. That's all, thank you.
Mr. Tigas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a sort of a general comment that the fire truck replacement made me think about it. I just want to commend the central maintenance staff for how they get vehicles to go beyond their life expectancy and saves us, you know, vehicles that should be replaced every X amount of years, we get 2 or 3 more years out of them because of their commitment to keeping these vehicles running. And I know we have Justin over at the fire department mechanic at, obviously at the fire station. He just recently, if I'm not mistaken, rebuilt one of the apparatus, part of the apparatus that saved the town hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I just want to commend Justin too for, you know, helping the town and keeping these vehicles running and saving us money in the long run. But I just wanted to commend them on their, what they do for us.
Yeah, good point. And I think it was the aerial that he actually went above and beyond in terms of a large maintenance endeavor to that piece of equipment. Saved us a ton of dough. Anything further, gentlemen? on the warrant articles? Okay, we have a motion to approve the warrant articles. John outlined this evening.
Make a motion to approve warrant articles as written.
Motion from Selectman Morandi,
Second.
second from Selectman Tigas. Anything further? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 94, you see these from time to time. Any of our deed restricted properties, Town of Burlington is the monitoring agent. Whenever there's a refi or large capital improvements or any kind of a cash out scenario that may affect the resale value of the property, it needs proof from the Town of Burlington. This one here, without mentioning anybody's name, we just refer to as an applicant. Paul has signed off on this. I'm sure he's done his due diligence. I can tell you that the amounts shown on the warrant article here is well within the percentage of resale, maximum resale value for that particular property. But anyway, Paul or John, you want to elaborate any further on?
I think you covered all the most important points, Mr. Chairman. Because of the deed restriction on the property, the town has to be involved in financing or refinancing to provide approval and make sure it's within the general guidelines as you've already discussed.
Yeah, most people do it the right way, and they do get involved in this, but we have had 1 or 2 incidents where folks have actually gone out and gotten refinancing and end up exceeding the value of the allowable sale price. In fact, I don't even want to go there. It's kind of a nightmare scenario, but most people play by the rules. This one certainly is. Any questions from the board? No. John, anything to add on that? Okay, if that's the case, I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for
Make a motion to approve Greenview refinancing, or Greenview Common, excuse me. Refinancing.
Second.
Motion and a second, anything further? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 500. Okay, and item, discussion of approval, the Grandview fees, we've had a little discussion on that. Paul, you want to summarize? Sure,
Mr. Chairman, I think we can withdraw that article for this week. The purpose of it, that agenda item is no longer needed at this time.
Okay. We'll revisit that. Sure. Subcommittee reports. Start with Mr. Tigas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be remiss if I didn't commend the fire department. Unfortunately, they have been extremely busy over the last month or so. For the month of March, they responded to 393 calls, including a house fire on Peach Orchard Road. I'd like to thank Woburn Fire Department, who assisted with the rapid intervention team, and the towns of Wilmington and Bedford for covering our stations. They had 254 EMS calls not related to motor vehicle crashes. They had 6 major motor vehicle crashes up on Route 95, 6 natural gas leaks, a successful elevator extrication from Pine Glen. I reached out to the Chief Conity, to ask him how, to give me a little summation or words of wisdom with regards to what happened last week. And we had a house fire on Polk Street that was started that began as a brush fire. And I'll just read his statement to me. The National Weather Service issued a red flag warning Friday due to forecasted low humidity, high winds, and minimum rainfall for the last 2 weeks. The cause of the brush fire that led to the house fire was most likely careless disposal of a cigarette. There were 4 brush fires that day, causing 4 fires that day, 2 brush fires, 2 mulch fires. As for the Polk Street incident, high winds blew from the fire from Francis Wyman School quickly toward the house. The brush fire first destroyed a gas meter on the house, so it was wind-driven and fed by natural gas. There was a heavy fire load in the house, and the firefighters did a great job given the conditions. They prevented the fire from spreading to other properties and homes, including a home under construction that was only yards away. The resident of the home had been helped out of the home by construction crews in the area. She was not injured, and no firefighters were injured. Mutual aid at the scene was provided by Woburn, Bedford, and Billerica Fire Departments. Station coverage was provided by Stoneham and Reading Fire Departments, and an off-duty Watertown firefighter assisted in laying the hose lines. And a paramedic unit from Billerica was staged on standby. Prevention of brush fires is accomplished by using caution when using flammable materials, such as a disposal of smoking materials while camping or cooking out. Keep the yard clean of dried, dead leaves and branches that can help as well. It is advised to keep dead leaves and debris at least 30 feet from the home. So the Polk Street area, some of it's an older section of town, and those houses are very close together, and they did a tremendous job from preventing that fire going to another yard or another house. So I just want to commend them and warn people, the residents, it's tough, it's dry. You throw a cigarette or whatever you have that's starting a fire, you could potentially, in the case that happened last week, burn someone's house down. So please be careful. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's actually kind of weird. We're a week out from the town election, which is unusual, I think. Typically, we wind up having our meeting right after it, and we all come in, burnt and windblown and sore from whatever we've done over the course of the weekend. So to have a whole week's worth of time is a little strange. But I just want to take a moment and thank Amy Warfield, the town clerk's office, for everything they do, year-round. They're running all of our elections, and town election is, not without exception. They do a wonderful job of keeping everyone moving and everything filled, and the results tallied damn near instantly. It's just absolutely incredible. A thanks to everyone who ran, and a congratulations to everyone who won, including you, Mr. Tigas.
Thank you.
Even though, you know, it was you in the wind, but, you know, that's all aside.
And the wind blows.
Yeah, and the wind blows.
It was a top vote to get it, by the way.
Yeah, it was only, I think, 12% this year, you know, so it was, you know, not our best turnout, you know, but it goes back to the conversation earlier about, you know, participation and engagement. You know, we can't knock on every door and yank you out of your house and make you come vote. So actual subcommittee stuff, ISAC is going to be conducting their assessment, you know, so we get results on that in the next couple of months. And then our communications plan. So we have just kind of gone through the initial big chunk of phase 2, where all town folks, staff, and elected or otherwise have been interviewed and data has been collected. And now we are putting out a community-wide survey, which will be running for the next month. So keep your eyes out for that. You know, you can log on and fill out. It's a handful of questions. It's going to help us collect more data about how the community is looking to engage and how they currently engage. So that'll be very helpful, which will all result in a final reading of the report in June, at which point we can decide kind of how we want to action forward. But I'm super excited for that, and I'll be reposting that link once I get it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Priest. Mr. Morandi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have any subcommittee reports, but I would like to say, shout out or congratulations to the Boston University Terrors for making it to the Frozen Four. First year head coach, Burlington resident at one time, Jay Pandolfo was elected the head coach this year, and he went from a team that wasn't supposed to make it to all the way to the final four. I mean, they did lose gracefully in the first round, but he won Hockey East Coach of the Year. Still waiting to hear about Coach of the Year. I guess it's find out if he's in the running for that. So a big shout out to the Pandolfo family and especially Jay. So
Excellent.
so put that out there.
Thank you, Joe. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a subcommittee report, but I did have the pleasure on Saturday to attend an Eagle Scout ceremony. Troop 103 had 4 Eagle Scouts who attained the rank of Eagle. And congratulations to Neil Almeida, Krish Almeida, Aiden Khalifa, and Mike Wadilla. And it's always great to see Burlington get new Eagle Scouts. I shared the story. You'll appreciate this, Mr. Chairman. The Eagle Scout Award is something that always sticks with you no matter where you go. You'll always be an Eagle. And out of all the great things I did growing up in town as a young Burlington young man, the only thing on my resume today is Eagle Scout, Troop 511, Burlington, Mass. And I shared the story with the Scouts that I probably wouldn't have been before them on Saturday if it wasn't for my Eagle, because what got me involved in town government, I don't know if you remember, my interview for the Board of Appeals in 2018, I sat with you and Ms. Selectman Morandi, and you directly remarked, you're an Eagle Scout? Why didn't we know this? And I think that might have been one of the things that put me over the top and started my journey onto the Board of Appeals and then to planning and then here. So I told them it opens doors and will always be with you. And it was a great afternoon at Marshall Simons Middle School with the families and the troop leaders, and just a great accomplishment for all those young men. It was awesome to go to.
Absolutely. And it's just remarkable, Mike, the number of Burlington residents that are achieving that rank of Eagle Scout. It's really remarkable. It's above and beyond the norm for most communities. So kudos to the parents, the scout leaders, the whole darn program. It's just, yeah, I'm always impressed when I
Only 2% of all kids that sign up for Scout achieve the rank of Eagle, and we seem like we have a ton of them here in town, so they're awesome. And they're all wonderfully sharp and great young men. I talked to them all, and they all spoke, and they were, well, this was men on Saturday, but they're all well-spoken, and just, they have bright futures ahead of them. It was awesome.
Great story. Thank you, Michael. I got two quick items. Yeah, this happens to be, we do this annually, Public Safety Telecommunications Week. In other words, it's our dispatchers, our 911 dispatchers, our police, fire, and EMS dispatchers, the unsung heroes of public safety. They just do a remarkable job. I'm not just saying that because I did it for a few years, but I can tell you from experience, they are just as important as the boots on the ground out there. Jimmy will attest to that as well.
Absolutely.
Just remarkable. So kudos to all of our men and women who answer the phones here in Burlington and direct all of the appropriate people and apparatus to the appropriate places. So great for them. And,
Chairman, if I can follow up on that
yeah,
real quick?
Sure.
Dispatching, when we started, our careers was much different than it is today, but the dispatchers today, particularly at the fire station, they have what's called EMD, Emergency Medical Dispatching. They actually start first aid over the phone, which is, only been around for a few years, so they actually get the link, the survival link, the chain of survival links going before the personnel are even dispatched. So and they're showing, the studies are coming out now, how that's effective in saving lives. So that EMD, the Emergency Medical Dispatches, it's tremendous. And I also want to.
Again, they just as important as every other man and woman who was out there in a police car or on the back of a piece of fire apparatus. So thanks to all of our public safety dispatchers here in Burlington. And I was absent during our last meeting, and I just wanted to add my voice to the choir. I watched the replay, and I know a lot of you guys had some kind words for Terry Tapia, our assistant town collector, who retired recently, and I just wanted to add my voice to the accolades to send her way. She's a true Burlington person. She eats, lives, and breathes Burlington, I can tell you. I've worked on a number of projects with her on the town common, from the 9/11 memorial to the Olympic stones out there and the 4th of July parade. She just gives it all for Burlington. Good luck, Terry, in your retirement. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Zagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board did a good job of covering everything I would have mentioned this evening, but I do want to just reiterate what Selectman Priest said about our election officials. Just a spectacular and efficient job, given all the problems that we see across the country with elections. Very grateful for how thoughtful, how efficient, and what a great job Amy, her staff, and the town's election workers. It's a long day down there, and they really do a great job of just doing everything in a way that we have faith in our elections, and I'm very grateful for the work that they do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything further? John, do you have anything to add?
Nothing.
Lynn, anything to add?
Well, that's Sydney while you're at it, too.
Well, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen.